What's it look like to trust God with plenty?
Do you know, Di, I remember a few years ago, I saw a survey in an American newspaper, and it simply asked this question. It asked people whose income was $35,000, how much do you need to be happy and content and to have enough? And those who had $35,000 said they needed $50,000. But when that question was asked of those who are earning $75,000, the answer wasn't, we have enough. The answer was, in order to be happy and content, I need $150,000. And so the first part of your question makes me think, do you know, if you have plenty, is there not a temptation to think you don't have plenty and you always want more?
I think that for me, it's, as Pete has said before, it's about the responsibility that you have to steward that money well. And I've had times of plenty and times of virtually nothing. And I think for me, I'd be asking God for wisdom as to what do you want, how do you want me to use this money, and where do you want me to give this, what do you want me to do with it, because it is an important responsibility, and money is a tool that can empower and enable lots of other things. So I think that's been my journey of really hearing from him what he wants, how he wants me to use that. After you've done the usual, the tithe and the giving and those other things, and making sure that you are established in many ways with surplus, asking him what he wants me to do with that, and that's really quite fun.
Yeah, responsibility. That responsibility contains the word response, and we're responding to God.
Yeah.
And the fact that He owns it all, that He is the owner of everything I have, puts a different slant on it, doesn't it? It's not mine; it belongs to God. So then we have a big responsibility to trust God that I can use it in the way that He would want it to, because He's the owner.
Do you think it's easy to focus on what we haven't been given, as opposed to, remember perhaps what God has already given us?
So very often our focus is on what we don't have. I mean, we're complaining all the time. I don't have enough of this, I don't have that, and it's a sign of lack of faith, I think, or a lack of thankfulness.
So maybe the antidote, Peter, is first of all thankfulness, and then really learning what contentment looks like. Because the world wants us to spend. They say, have this because you deserve it. And so as Christians, Paul said, be content. And in fact, he even defined what we needed to have as Christians in terms of shelter, food and clothing. And if the Bible was being rewritten today, would it really say shelter, food and clothing, car and mobile phone? No, it's just true today, shelter, food and clothing, and all the rest of the things, they can clutter our lives, and we have to avoid the danger of taking the plenty and converting it into toys and things that really ultimately could distract us from God.
So do you think it's unbiblical then to want to be in control of your finances? Say if you want to put money away into a savings account, is that not trusting in God?
No, I think that's handling money well. It depends, in terms of speaking about control, is that something that only am I controlling it, or am I looking after it because it's on behalf of God? That's a different thing, but I think to have to be responsible and be aware of exactly what your finances are, and to be able to manage it well, I think it's a very godly thing.
For me, it's a partnership between me and God. God has a part to play, and I have a part to play. God will not do what He expects me to do, and I cannot certainly do what only God can do, and that is provide. So it's a partnership, and that's what I like about being a Christian and managing money. It doesn't only depend on me, but it's a partnership. God has a part and I have a part to play.
So say if you were putting money into a pension plan, for instance, that doesn't mean you're not trusting in God to provide for the future.
Saving money for the future, whether it's short term or longer term, ultimately gives us first of all flexibility and freedom. What's that flexibility and freedom for? Maybe it's actually spending more time serving the Lord, helping others, caring for others, sharing with others. So I see providing for the long term as giving us the opportunity of being freer to serve God. And so is it good to save for a pension? Well, we know that the state pension in the United Kingdom is withering on the vine. And so I think, being financially independent and free to serve Him, for me, is a really positive and necessary thing.
one tip of advice you'd give to someone who's struggling to, trust in God with their finances, what would you say?
I tell you what, I'd start probably by listing out over the next 30 days everything you spend your money on. Get a categorical sheet which says, this is how I spend my money. And as you do that, pray, and possibly God might reveal areas where you're spending money that you don't need to. I'd then take that information and I would create a balanced spending plan. And the goal is spend less than you're earning. And then maybe you could save a bit more, maybe you could downsize debts.
Hilary?
I think my totally different to Mark's sort of tip, but I just say, pray about it. God's interested in it. Talk to him about it, and hear what his heart is on it. That's it.
Yeah, I think I can add to that sometimes we think finances is too mundane or too worldly a thing for God to be interested in. Like Hilary said, God is interested in your finances, and he wants to join you in managing your finances. So what does God's activity in my life look like then? That's a matter of prayer. I want him to reveal himself through my finances.
Maybe one of the reasons why there's so much in the Bible about finances is because God wants to perhaps relegate it in our mind so that we're thinking less about financial problems and financial issues, so that we get the plan, we create a godly plan, and we need to look later on in our study together at what that looks like. But maybe we need to sort of relegate it in our thinking so that Christ is foremost and not the thought of having money issues, whether that's too much or too little. And probably most people would say you only have money issues when you have too little, and maybe they'd be right. But those that do have too much maybe also have issues. The Bible teaches about the importance of giving, and often in churches the preacher is happy to talk about giving. So generosity is at the heart of God. I mean, after all, he gave us Jesus Christ, so he is the ultimate giver.
That's one practical way, I think, which we can trust God, is in giving. When we think we cannot afford it, don't you think so?
Yeah.
To exercise faith and say, okay, I'm going to give something.
Well, there's in the Gospels it talks about that woman who has almost nothing, doesn't she? And she gives all that she has, and in the world's eyes, it's nothing. But to God, that's huge, isn't it? So I guess it's a heart issue.
Yes, it's like giving what you have in your hand, giving to him, and then he does what he does, like Peter said, with that, which is an amazing thing, I think.
It's actually one of the most amazing things I find in the New Testament, the story of the widow who gave away everything. And then there's the story of the rich young ruler who was told, because possessions had taken control of his heart, to give away everything. But the widow who had nothing gave everything away. And I think, what would it look like if I was called upon to give everything away? And it would make me stop and think, and I'm not sure what I would decide to do.
Maybe that's a kind of an acid test for whether you're trusting God or not, is can I give something that I think I can't afford to give?
Guys, thanks so much for watching our podcast on money. We really hope you enjoyed, and if you've got any more information you'd like to find out, please check out the website.